Yo, what's going on? Welcome back. So I've talked a few times in the past about how if you're a sample-based producer, you should really try to sample everything. There's just so much out there that outside of the things that you're really comfortable with, for me that was always soul and jazz samples, there's so much more out there that you can sample from where you might be surprised by what you might find, and it can lead to some of your best beats. And today is no exception for that. I was at a record shop a couple weeks ago and I saw this record that I thought, I'm gonna take a chance on this. There might be something crazy on here, and that is this record right here. Sesame Disco. It's a children's record, but I saw that it was a disco. It had this sort of 70s vibe with all the Sesame Street characters, plus Kermit. Shout out Kermit, what's up? And I thought maybe there's something on here that I'll be able to flip up. Sure enough, when I went to search through some of the tracks, I found this sample that I think we'll be able to make a really smooth, nice beat out of. The track that we're going to be sampling today is called Being Green. It's that really famous Kermit song where he talks about the trials and tribulations of being a green creature. But it's got this really nice, like laid back, funky beat that comes in through the intro. And I think that's what we should chop up and see if we can do something with. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to record the sample onto the SP404. Also, I just got the MKII, super psyched about it. I feel like I ordered this forever ago, but it's finally here and I'm getting acquainted with it. If you have any questions about the MKII, make sure to let me know in the comments and I'd be happy to learn this machine with you guys and just figure it out. So far, I'm loving the workflow on it. I got it because it's super portable and I just love the vibe I get. It's a pretty inspiring machine. So let's get right into it. Okay, so I've recorded the sample into the MKII on this pad right here. Here's a little taste of what it sounds like. As you could hear, doesn't sound like your typical kids record. So first things first, let's chop up this sample and then we can start making a beat. There is a lot of percussion in this sample, so when that happens, I usually just do like a quarter note chop on the 1 beat, 2, 3, 4, which is the kicks and snares typically. That way we can just sort of rearrange it well. So let's go ahead and do that. So now that we have that rough chop, I'm just going to zoom into the sample. That way we can just make sure that there's no space in front of each of those chops. For example, you can see there's a little bit of space right in front of that snare hit. So I'm going to go ahead and just make that a bit more precise. And now that I've done that with the first few, I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest so we can keep it moving. Let's do it. So I've got all those chops on this page on the SP, takes up all 16 pads. By default, they're not going to be in the same mute group, so when I go to play multiple at a time, they're all going to play simultaneously. I want those to make sure they cut each other off, so I'm going to put them all into the same mute group. I'll find an empty one here, and then just highlight all the pads. And now when I go to play one after another, it just cuts itself off, which is what I want. But I want to slow down the speed of this sample a little bit just so that we get a good speed for the beat. So I'm going to go to pitch and speed. And the good thing about putting all of them in the same mute group is when I hold copy, I can edit them all at the same time. So I'm going to put this to -2. And because it's on the vinyl mode, it will be slower and lower in pitch. Let's lay down a pattern, see what we can get going. Let's move it. I have an empty bank right here with no pattern, so I'm going to press record and the first pad. I'll leave that at 85 BPM and then I'll do a 4-bar pattern. And I'm going to turn the quantization to 100. I typically just do that with the sample chop to make sure that that's super precise. And then when I lay down the drums, I'll adjust that lower in order to have some of that humanization and a little bit of human error to give it some good uncomputerized feel. I'm really into that chop. I think it's got a really nice feeling to it. So let's add in some drums. I'm going to copy the pattern onto a separate pad before adding in the drums. I like to do that on the first pattern just so that I can get a feel for the drums, try out a few different patterns, And then if I don't like it, I don't have to go through and delete all the drums. I can just go back to that first pattern with just the chop on it. So I'll go copy and put it on the next pad. And then now we can see if we can find a drum pattern to add onto this. The first thing I'm gonna add is a hi-hat. And another one of the huge upgrades on the MK2 is similar to the MPC. We now have a 16 velocity setting on here, so we can lay a sound across the 16 pads and play it with variation in velocity. So let's go ahead and do that. As I mentioned previously, I'm also going to turn the quantization way down on this because I don't want it to be perfectly on beat. Let's record some. So now we're ready to start making some more patterns with this sample chop. Right now we have a 4-bar loop, which I think is a really good starting point for our beat, but we want to make sure that we have a couple variations so that we're not just constantly playing that 4-bar loop. So I'm going to make a new recording and just start from scratch on another sample chop, and then we can add in some more drums to that. Let's keep it moving. One thing you'll notice that I did there when I was recording the patterns is the drum patterns on the second and third sequence were the exact same, but I recorded them in both times anyways. One thing you could do is copy that whole pattern onto another pad and then just delete the sample chop and you'll be left with just the drums. But I like recording the whole thing over again because it's those small variances that are created when you play them in separately just from playing them slightly differently. I think those small changes and small differences are what can make a really good beat. And even though you may not notice it while you're listening, if they happen to be the exact same, it may be something that you actually do notice and it kind of gets in the way. So I like to record those all separately, but you can just copy them as well. But I really like the direction of this beat so far. I think we can now add in some bass, especially because we now have this chromatic mode again with the MK2, and you can, with the somewhat new update, you can record those chromatic sequences. So I have a bass sound on here somewhere. So I'll put that into the chromatic mode and then we can lay down a bass line on top of this. Let's do it. Okay, I really like where this beat is at, and I think we have a good beat that we can make some variations with and really perform with. But now I think we can really start taking advantage of some of the effects that we get on the MK2. So I'm going to add a compressor onto the whole track so we can kind of round it out a little bit, give it a little bit of that lo-fi sound and kind of just make it sound a little bit more polished. So I'm going to go to bus effects, go to bus 1, and then I'm going to add the compressor. And now I'm going to play the track so we can make some adjustments to the settings of that compressor and just kind of get it to our liking. think that sounded pretty good. Here's how it was before. And here's with the compressor. Just brings everything up, rounds it out a little bit. And one of the things I'm super excited about this machine is the multiple effects capabilities. So we have that compressor on bus 1, but if we go to bus 2, we can now adjust the effects while we're playing the track and still have that compressor going on the entire track. You can change the effects settings on pad 16 with shift, and right now you can see we're going from bus 1 into bus 2, and what that means is whatever we do on bus 2, it's going to be affecting the track after the compressor is already put on it. If we change the settings of this so that bus 1 and bus 2 run parallel, that means whatever is assigned to bus 1 would have the compressor, and whatever we assign to bus 2 will only have that effect that is on bus 2. So we want to make sure that it's bus 1 to bus 2, bus 1 being the compressor, bus 2 being whatever we want to do while performing the track. But I think this is a good place to leave this beat. It's definitely on the simpler side, but I think with this sample and the drum set we added, it just really works with it. Huge shout out to Sesame Disco, Kermit, thank you very much for this sample. But if you like the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you want to see in a future video. Love you so much. Thank you for stopping by. Peace.